Chief Joseph's mansion in Ikoyi was the kind of place that swallowed sound. The marble floors shone like polished mirrors, the chandelier glowed with the soft arrogance of old money, and the servants walked on tiptoe, afraid of upsetting the balance of a house ruled by a man whose voice could silence an entire boardroom. For years his triplet daughters, Victoria, Susan and Regina, had lived under his roof like princesses in a golden cage. But now, at 27, none of them had accepted a single suitor, and Chief Joseph was tired. He sat at the head of the long dining table that morning, his gray agbada flowing like a river behind him. His expression was carved from stone. Victoria and Susan exchanged nervous glances, while Regina stared at her plate quietly, avoiding eye contact. Chief Joseph cleared his throat, a sound that made even the chandelier tremble. "I am done with the embarrassment," he said, fixing his stern gaze on Victoria first. "You are 27. Your mates have children in secondary school, yet not one man has come here to tell me he wants to marry you." Victoria straightened her back, flipping the end of her sleek weave behind her shoulder. "Daddy, it's not that simple," she murmured. "Lagos men." "I don't want excuses," he snapped. Susan flinched. She was always the softer one. Her eyes watered, but she blinked fast to hide it. Chief Joseph continued, "You girls have turned down good, respectable men. Doctors, engineers, businessmen. Enough is enough." He reached into a leather envelope and dropped 3 checks on the table, each for $100,000. The crisp sound echoed through the silence. "You will take this money and leave this house," he declared. "And you will not return until you have found husbands." Victoria gasped. Susan covered her mouth. Regina simply looked at her check, her expression unreadable. Victoria stood first. "Daddy, you want us to leave? Just like that?" "Yes," Chief Joseph said without blinking. "You will fend for yourselves. You will learn life outside these walls." Susan's voice cracked. What if we don't find husbands?" "Then stay out there forever," he said flatly. Regina finally raised her head. "Is marriage the proof that we are valuable, Daddy?" Chief Joseph's eyes hardened. "A woman without a husband has failed." Those words hit Regina like a blow, but she didn't argue. She simply folded her check, her thoughts hidden behind calm eyes. Victoria stormed out first, her heels clacking in anger. Susan followed, wiping her tears. But Regina remained seated for a moment, looking at her father with a quiet strength he did not understand. Then she rose, bowed her head respectfully, and walked out without a single tear. Later that afternoon, the triplets stood outside the mansion for the first time with suitcases lined up beside them. The gate closed behind them with a heavy finality. Their journeys had begun, 3 sisters, 3 paths, but none of them knew how wildly different their stories would turn out. Victoria called a taxi angrily. "I swear, I will marry a senator just to spite Daddy." Susan sniffed. "I don't even know where to start." Regina looked at the city stretching before them. "We will all find our way. Just not in the same direction." It was the first hint of the shock to come, one that would shake their father, Lagos society, and even the triplets themselves. Victoria had always believed Lagos belonged to her. Its parties, its high-rise dreams, its polished men with champagne smiles. So when she stepped out of the taxi in front of her friend Tolu's apartment in Lekki Phase 1, she lifted her chin with renewed confidence. She refused to let Chief Joseph's ultimatum define her. If he wanted a suitor, she would return with the best that Lagos could offer, a man with power, presence, and pedigree. Tolu opened the door before she knocked. "Vicky, my girl, why are you dragging luggage like someone running from EFCC?" Victoria pushed past her and rolled the suitcases inside. "Not EFCC. My father." Tolu's eyes widened. "Your father chased you out of Ikoyi mansion?" "He didn't chase me," Victoria corrected, dropping onto the couch. "He dismissed me. Gave me $100,000 and told me not to come back without a husband." Tolu burst into laughter. Your father is a different kind of dramatic. Victoria didn't laugh. It's not funny. I need a place to stay. Just for a while. Tolu nodded. Of course. But what exactly is your plan? Victoria exhaled, brushing invisible lint off her dress. I'll find a suitable man. You know the circles we move in. Weddings, private dinners, charity galas. I just need the right introduction. Tolu grinned. Then you're stepping out tonight. There's an art auction in Victoria Island. Perfect place to meet Lagos big boys. Later that evening, Victoria stood in front of Tolu's mirror wearing a shimmering gold dress that hugged her figure elegantly. She applied her lipstick, steady and intentional, like a woman preparing for battle. When they arrived at the auction, the air smelled of old money and ambition. Men in tailored suits moved like they owned the city, while women in expensive gowns laughed too loudly at jokes that weren't funny. Victoria fit right in. A man approached her, tall, handsome, with a confident stride. Good evening, he said, offering a glass of champagne. I'm Barrister Akinwale. Victoria smiled slowly. Victoria Joseph. A beautiful name, he replied. They talked about art, business, real estate, Lagos traffic, politics. Akinwale was charming in a polished way that felt rehearsed. Victoria didn't mind, she was performing too. After an hour, he leaned closer. We should have dinner sometime. She tilted her head. I'd like that. But suddenly Tolu tapped Victoria's shoulder. There's someone you need to meet, she whispered urgently. Victoria excused herself and followed Tolu to the far end of the hall, where a group of elite businessmen stood around a sculpture. Their laughter filled the space with the confidence of untouchable wealth. That's Chief Emeka Over, Tolu whispered. One of the richest private investors in Lagos. And guess what? He's single. Victoria's heartbeat quickened. A man like that would silence her father forever. She approached him with calculated grace. Good evening, Chief, she said softly. He glanced at her, surprised by her poise. Good evening, young lady. I've heard so much about your work, she continued. It would be an honor to know more. The chief's eyes warmed with interest. Join me. Let's talk. Victoria smiled inwardly. This was the beginning she needed. Across the room, the auction lights glowed like promises waiting to be claimed. Victoria wasn't looking for love, she was hunting for status. And Lagos, in all its glittering chaos, offered her the perfect battlefield. Her father wanted a husband? She would return with a king. Susan had never been as bold as Victoria. While her sister flourished in Lagos' flashing lights, Susan preferred quiet corners, soft music, and familiar faces. So when the gate of her father's mansion closed behind her, she felt a trembling fear she could not hide. Her suitcase felt heavier than it looked, and the check in her handbag felt like a burden rather than a blessing. She took a Danfo bus to Suralere, heading straight to her childhood friend Kemi's apartment. The bus conductor barked fares, passengers argued over change, and Susan held her bag tightly to her chest. It had been years since she used public transport, but pride could not carry her across town. She stepped off the bus with shaky legs. Kemi opened the door before Susan could even knock fully. Susan? Kemi gasped, pulling her inside. You look like you've been running from a lion. Susan burst into tears immediately, collapsing onto the sofa. Daddy sent us out of the house, she said, wiping her cheeks. Kemi's eyes widened. Sent you out? Why? He wants us to marry. He gave us money and told us not to come back without husbands. Kemi sat beside her, rubbing her back gently. That man has always been strict, but this is extreme. Susan sighed. Kemi, I don't even think I'm ready for marriage. So what will you do now? Kemi asked softly. I don't know. Later that evening, Kemi prepared dinner, jollof rice and fried plantain. Susan offered to help, but the kitchen was too small for 2 people. Instead, she sat on the stool, watching Kemi stir the pot. You know, Kemi said, Maybe this is your chance to start fresh. You've lived under your father all your life. Maybe now you can discover who you are. But Daddy will never accept me back without a husband. Kemi gave her a pointed look. Susan, not every battle is won in a straight line. Sometimes you have to find another way. After dinner, Kemi told her about a job opening at a private school in Yaba. They need an assistant admin officer. You're organized, patient, and good with people. I think you'll fit. Susan hesitated. She had never worked a day in her life. But the alternative was worse, wandering Lagos without direction. The next morning, she woke early, borrowed one of Kemi's simple office dresses, and headed to the school. The compound was lively, children running, teachers shouting across the yard, administrators hurrying with files. It felt chaotic yet full of life. She approached the front desk nervously. Good morning. I'm here to apply for the admin assistant position. The receptionist, a cheerful woman named Mrs. Beasy, handed her a form. Fill this and wait for the principal. Susan sat quietly, observing the environment. Teachers scolded students, cleaners swept the corridors, and parents came in with complaints. It wasn't glamorous like Victoria's world. No chandeliers, no champagne, no designer dresses. But something about the simplicity calmed her. 30 minutes later, the principal, Mr. Adebayo, called her in. You are Chief Joseph's daughter? He asked, surprised. Yes, sir, Susan answered softly. Why do you want this job? Your father is a wealthy man. Susan inhaled deeply. I need to build something for myself. I want stability and purpose. Mr. Adebayo studied her for a long moment. You start on Monday. Susan's eyes widened. I got the job. Yes, he said, smiling. Welcome to the team. As she stepped out of the office, the afternoon sun warmed her skin. For the first time since leaving the mansion, she felt a small spark of hope. While Victoria chased influential men in Victoria Island, Susan was discovering something she never expected, her own strength. And though neither sister knew it, Regina's journey would take a path none of them could ever predict. Regina stood alone at the bus park in Ojota, her small suitcase beside her and the envelope containing her father's $100,000 tucked deep inside her bag. Unlike Victoria's bold strides or Susan's trembling steps, Regina carried a silence that felt deliberate, almost peaceful. She wasn't running away. She was walking toward something, though she did not yet know what. Passengers shouted destinations, hawkers waved sachet water and gala in her face, and buses roared like restless animals. Regina scanned the signboards until she found the one she wanted, Ebonyi/Enugu route, last bus to Abakpa. She approached the driver. Is there still space? The man looked her over. One seat left. Are you going? Yes. She paid and climbed into the bus, settling between an elderly woman carrying yams and a young mother with a sleeping baby. The bus smelled of dust, engine heat, and pepper soup from someone's flask. Regina closed her eyes as the bus groaned forward. For years, she had felt suffocated in her father's mansion, expected to speak softly, dress modestly, and be the well-behaved one. Victoria was the glamorous one, Susan the gentle one. Regina? She was the obedient shadow. But obedience, she realized, was not the same as purpose. As the bus left Lagos behind, Regina's mind turned. Marriage wasn't her dream. She wanted something different, something meaningful. Her mother once told her, a woman's life is more than the ring on her finger. Regina had held onto those words ever since. After several hours, the bus entered Ebonyi State. The landscape changed, tall palm trees, red earth roads, children chasing goats across fields. When Regina finally stepped down in Abakpa village, a calm breeze greeted her, carrying the scent of wood smoke and ripe mangoes. A man pushing a wheelbarrow paused in front of her. Good afternoon, Thi. You lost? No, Regina answered. I'm looking for a place to stay. He pointed toward a cluster of mud brick houses. Go to Mama Chinyer's lodge. She rents rooms to visitors." Regina thanked him and walked down the path. Dust clung to her sandals, and chickens scurried out of her way. Children playing with old tires stopped to stare at her city clothes. She smiled shyly. At the lodge, an elderly woman opened the door. "And how can I help you?" "I need a room. Just for some time." Mama Chinyer eyed her thoughtfully. "City girl ABI? You don't look like someone running away. You look like someone searching." Regina's eyes softened. Maybe that's true. The woman gave her a small, neat room, simple bed, wooden stool, nothing luxurious. But Regina felt more at home than she had in years. The next morning, she woke to the sound of women pounding fufu outside. Their laughter drifted through the window. She stepped out to watch them, their arms strong, their wrappers bright, their spirits unbroken by hardship. A woman with a wide smile approached her. "Good morning, my sister. You are new here." "Yes," Regina said. "I'm Regina. I am at ease. If you need help, ask me." Regina nodded gratefully. "Thank you." As she walked around the village, she noticed something striking. Most of the women were working alone, farming, selling food, weaving baskets, yet struggling financially. Their products were good, but they didn't have the means to reach buyers or improve production. Regina paused by a woman roasting cassava flakes. "You work alone?" Regina asked. The woman nodded. "My husband died. It is not easy." Another woman nearby sighed. "We try, but without proper tools, it is always small money." Regina's mind sparked. What if the women worked together? What if the money her father gave wasn't for finding a husband, but for building something powerful? That evening, she sat outside her room, watching the sun sink behind the hills. Her decision crystallized like dawn breaking. "I know what I must do," she whispered. Her journey would not be about marriage, it would be about empowerment. And this was only the beginning. The next morning, Regina returned to the village center with a notebook and pen. She had spent the night thinking, her mind alive with plans. The women she had observed yesterday were now her focus. If they could pool their skills, share resources, and sell their products collectively, perhaps they could earn more and gain independence. But she had to convince them first. She approached a group of women roasting yams and sorting cassava. "Good morning," she said softly, careful to bow slightly in respect. "My name is Regina. I am new here, and I want to help." The women looked at her skeptically. One older woman, thin and lined with age, frowned. "Help? What kind of help?" "I have some money," Regina said cautiously, pulling out a small envelope. "I want to use it to buy equipment, materials, and seeds. But only if you are willing to work together and run a cooperative. You keep the profits. I will not take anything." A murmur ran through the women. Adiz, the woman who had first greeted her, stepped forward. "You mean we can all work together and make more money?" she asked, eyes bright. "Yes," Regina replied. "But only if everyone contributes and trusts each other." Some women laughed, thinking the offer too good to be true. "City girl, you do not know our ways," one muttered. "People fight, cheat, and take what is not theirs." Regina smiled. "I understand. That's why we will start small, slowly until trust grows. I'm not here to control. I am here to help you help yourselves." Slowly, one by one, the women began nodding. "I will try," Adiz said first. "If it works, it will be good for all of us." A shorter woman holding a basket of dried peppers added, "I am in too. Maybe we can finally make ends meet." By the end of the day, Regina had a small team of 8 women, each with different skills: weaving, farming, baking, and selling. She opened the envelope and distributed seed money for supplies, writing meticulous instructions for record keeping, production schedules, and group meetings. The women watched her in awe as she handled every detail with care. Despite her youth, Regina commanded respect, not with authority, but with quiet intelligence and determination. Slowly, A spark of hope lit the faces of the villagers. For the first time in years, they felt someone believed in them. In the following weeks, Regina worked alongside the women. She rose with the sun, helped pound yam, baked cassava bread, and carried baskets to the small market in the village. She listened to their stories of hardship, celebrated small victories, and ensured that the cooperative was fair. Word spread fast. Villagers came from nearby communities to sell or buy products, impressed by the women's organization and determination. One evening, as they counted the day's earnings, Adiz looked at Regina with admiration. "I cannot believe this," she said. "We have more than we ever earned in months, and it feels good. Not just the money, but the pride." Regina smiled, her heart swelling. "This is just the beginning," she said. "If we work together, nothing can stop us." Meanwhile, back in Lagos, Chief Joseph was growing restless. Victoria had been spotted at exclusive parties with prominent men, flaunting her charm, while Susan's letters were polite but vague about progress. Regina, he assumed, would follow the same pattern, but no one had seen her in Lagos for weeks. Little did he know, the quietest daughter had taken the boldest step of all, turning money meant for a husband into a lifeline for an entire village. And the shock of her choice would ripple far beyond Abakba. That night, as Regina watched the women laugh over roasted yam, she whispered to herself, "I don't need a husband to prove my worth. We can build something greater than anyone imagined." And for the first time, she felt freedom. Weeks passed, and Regina's women's cooperative began to gain traction. The women's products, cassava flour, handmade baskets, roasted yams, and woven mats, started selling faster than anyone had imagined. Local traders came to Abakba to buy in bulk, and even a few Lagos merchants took interest. But success, as Regina quickly learned, brought its own challenges. One humid morning, as Regina organized deliveries at the village square, a man approached. He wore a worn-out suit and carried a briefcase that looked far too heavy for him. "Good morning, ladies," he said, his voice sharp. "I'm Mr. Obinna. I deal with supplies and transport. I hear you've started a small business here." Adiz stepped forward cautiously. "Yes, sir. It's our cooperative. How can we help you?" Mr. Obinna's eyes swept the group. "I am here to offer you a contract, but under my terms. You sell your products through me, and I will take 30% of the profits." His smile was polite but calculated. Think of it as a shortcut to larger markets. Regina felt a knot tighten in her stomach. 30% was far too much, and she sensed the man's tone carried an unspoken threat. "We appreciate your interest," she said carefully, "but we handle our own sales. We are small, but we are building something sustainable. Our priority is fairness for all members." Mr. Obinna's smile faltered slightly. "Fairness? You may think you are in control, but soon, larger players will crush small operations like yours if you do not comply." The women murmured nervously. Adiz's grip tightened on a basket. "We can't let him take our money," she whispered. Regina squared her shoulders. "We will find another way. Our products are good. We have buyers who appreciate quality. That's enough for now." The man left, but his words lingered like a shadow. That afternoon, Regina called a meeting with the cooperative. They gathered under the large mango tree at the center of the village, sweat dripping in the humid air. Children played in the background, and the smell of roasted yams filled the air. "Ladies," Regina began, "we have a challenge. Someone wants to take a large portion of our profits if we use him to sell our products." A wave of panic passed through the group. "He's rich," one woman exclaimed. "Maybe we should listen." "No," Regina said firmly. "We didn't start this cooperative to give our work away. We started it to empower ourselves." Adiz nodded. "Regina is right. We may be small, but we are strong. We will find buyers who respect our work." For the next week, Regina worked tirelessly. She contacted Lagos buyers directly via phone, sent sample products, and even hired a small truck to transport goods herself. Every day, She drove between villages and the city, learning logistics, negotiations, and patience. She slept little, her determination unwavering. By the end of the week, the cooperative had secured 5 new clients from Lagos, paying fair prices and respecting the women's terms. The threat of Mr. Obinna faded into the background, replaced by a sense of achievement and confidence. That evening, Regina sat outside her small room, watching the sun set behind the hills. The women celebrated with laughter and music, the air vibrating with pride. She finally understood the power of choice. It wasn't money alone, but the courage to say no that made them unstoppable. Far away, in Lagos, Chief Joseph checked his emails obsessively. Victoria's latest date with a wealthy businessman had ended in a polite rejection, and Susan's letters mentioned nothing about finding a husband. Regina's name had not appeared once. He frowned, sensing that the quietest daughter might be up to something no one could predict. And for Regina, the cooperative was only the beginning. Bigger challenges awaited, but she was ready to face them, head-on, fearless, and independent. By the start of the rainy season, Regina's cooperative had become the talk of Abakba and surrounding villages. The women's baskets, cassava flour, and roasted yams were no longer just small village products. They had a brand, a reputation for quality, and loyal customers in Lagos. Regina had even begun to teach the women basic bookkeeping, turning their small operation into something professional and sustainable. One morning, she gathered the women under the mango tree, the air fragrant with wet earth and roasted yam. "I have an idea," she began, her voice steady. "We've done well selling to buyers, but what if we expanded further? What if we invited other villages to join us, pooling resources to increase production and reach larger markets?" Adiz raised her eyebrows. "Other villages? That's ambitious. Will they even want to join?" Regina smiled. "Some might, and if we lead by example, they will see it's possible." The women murmured among themselves, excitement mingling with fear. Expansion meant risk, more coordination, more travel, more money, but also more opportunity. They trusted Regina, and her confidence inspired them. By the next week, Regina traveled to neighboring villages, meeting women who worked tirelessly on similar crafts. She explained the cooperative's vision, showed them records of earnings, and introduced a small membership plan. Slowly the idea spread. Women began signing on, excited by the promise of fair profit sharing and mutual support. Meanwhile, in Lagos, Victoria's pursuit of a high-status husband continued to produce mixed results. She attended private dinners, charity events, and gala openings, always dressed impeccably, her golden gown shimmering under the city lights. Yet, each suitor she met seemed either shallow or intimidated by her father's wealth. She started to feel a gnawing frustration she hadn't anticipated. Susan, on the other hand, had begun teaching at the Yaba school. Her calm demeanor and patience quickly earned her the respect of both staff and students. She discovered joy in helping children learn and watched them thrive, feeling a sense of fulfillment she hadn't expected. Unlike Victoria, she didn't chase husbands or status. She was building her own life, quietly but meaningfully. Back in Abakba, Regina faced her first major test of leadership. A large shipment of cassava flour, prepared for Lagos clients, was delayed by flooding along the dirt road. Traders called angrily, demanding deliveries. Panic rippled through the women of the cooperative. "Regina, what do we do?" Adiz asked, worry lines creasing her forehead. Regina took a deep breath. "We improvise. We can divide the stock among smaller buyers closer to here and send the remainder by foot to Lagos if the truck can't get through. It will take longer, but we can fulfill our commitments." Her decision calmed the women. Together, they worked long hours, repacking flour and coordinating transport. By evening, the shipment was on its way, and the cooperative had survived its first real crisis. That night, Regina sat outside her small room, listening to the laughter and chatter of the women. The wind carried the scent of wet earth and firewood. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This was her world now, built by her own hands. Somewhere deep in Lagos, Chief Joseph began to hear whispers of a city girl transforming villages with her money and initiative. Regina's name surfaced not as a potential bride, but as a force of change. For the first time, he felt a stir of unease. His quiet daughter, whom he had dismissed, was proving far more daring than he had imagined. Regina smiled to herself, looking at the village under the moonlight. Her path was clear. She would grow the cooperative, help more women, and show that independence was more powerful than marriage. And she would do it all on her terms. The Lagos sun blazed over Victoria's penthouse balcony in Victoria Island, but her excitement felt hollow. She sipped her champagne, scrolling through her phone, when a notification caught her eye. A news article about a small village in Ebonyi State. Young entrepreneur empowers rural women. Local cooperative flourishes. Victoria's eyes widened. She read quickly, scanning for the woman's name, Regina Joseph. Her lips parted in disbelief. Regina? Our quiet sister Regina? She muttered, setting down her champagne. Susan, who had arrived for a weekend visit, peered over Victoria's shoulder. What is it? Victoria handed her the phone. Susan read, her eyes lighting up. She's using the money Daddy gave her to help people? Victoria shook her head. I thought she'd be struggling like the rest of us, or at least looking for a husband. Susan smiled softly. She's always been different. Yes, but observant. She's doing something meaningful. Victoria, usually competitive and proud, felt a pang of envy she hadn't expected. Meaningful? But she's in a village far from Lagos. No one will notice her except the village itself. Daddy will. She stopped herself, realizing her father's likely reaction. Wait, Daddy might actually be shocked. Susan nodded. We should visit her, she said cautiously. See what she's done firsthand. Victoria hesitated. Pride battled curiosity. Do you really think we should? Yes, Susan said firmly. I think it's time we see the bigger picture. A week later, the sisters arrived in Abakba. The bus ride was long and bumpy, and Victoria's city airs clashed with the earthy scent of the village. But when they stepped off the bus, they were met by a group of women laughing, carrying baskets, and bustling with energy. Welcome! Adiz called out, running toward them. You must be Regina's sisters. Victoria looked around, stunned. All of this, she did this? Susan's eyes glistened. It's incredible, she murmured. Before they could approach, Regina appeared, dressed in a simple wrapper and blouse, her hair tied back neatly. She smiled warmly but cautiously. Victoria. Susan. I didn't expect visitors. Victoria swallowed her surprise. We had to see for ourselves. Regina nodded. I understand. I wanted to build something sustainable, not chase a husband. The money from Daddy helped, but the women did all the hard work. Victoria's voice wavered. I never imagined this. Valued? I don't know. Follow Daddy's orders. Regina shook her head. I respect Daddy, but I also respect myself. I couldn't use the money for marriage when I could create opportunities for others. Susan stepped closer. You've inspired me too. Seeing you, Regina, it makes me think differently about my own life. Victoria's pride twisted inside her. I guess I was wrong to think you were the quiet one. You're doing what neither of us dared. Regina smiled faintly, a mixture of humility and determination in her gaze. We all have our paths, she said softly. Yours is different, but that doesn't make it less valuable. The sisters spent the day touring the cooperative. They watched women weave baskets with precision, measure flour for sale, and coordinate deliveries. It was a rhythm of community and purpose that Victoria and Susan had never seen before. By the evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Victoria admitted quietly, Regina, you've shown me something I didn't know I needed to see. This is real success. Regina simply smiled. Thank you. But it's not about me. It's about what we can all do for others. Susan hugged her gently. You've changed so much more than just this village. You've changed us too. That night, as they sat around a small fire, Victoria and Susan began to understand the shock their father would feel when he learned what Regina had done, an accomplishment that no husband, no party, and no luxury could ever match. Regina, meanwhile, gazed at the stars above Abakba, silently preparing for the next challenge. Her vision had only just begun. Back in Lagos, Chief Joseph sat in his study, the city lights casting long shadows across the walls lined with awards, framed degrees, and family portraits. He had spent the day trying to track his daughter's progress, but emails from Victoria were about social events, and Susan's letters spoke of school and routine. Regina's name had not appeared in any correspondence, until the call from a Lagos trader changed everything. Chief Joseph, you need to see this, the trader said, voice urgent. There's a cooperative in Abakba. The woman running it, Regina Joseph, she's transforming the village. Her products are in demand, and she's making a real impact. Chief Joseph frowned, gripping the arm of his leather chair. Regina? My quiet, obedient daughter Regina? Yes, sir. She's organized the women, expanded the operation, and the profits are steady. People are talking about her across Ebonyi State, and even Lagos buyers are coming to her directly. Chief Joseph leaned back, stunned. I gave her money to find a husband, and she built a business? The trader's laughter was soft but pointed. Exactly, sir. She's proving that she doesn't need a husband to succeed. The cooperative is thriving because of her vision and leadership. The billionaire sat in silence, staring at the family portrait on the wall. The image of his 3 daughters, once neatly posed and framed, now seemed to mock him. Victoria and Susan had followed predictable paths, and he had assumed Regina would be the same. Yet she had chosen independence, initiative, and empowerment over wealth, status, or a husband. The next morning, Chief Joseph booked a flight to Abakba. He did not announce his visit to Regina. He wanted to see it with his own eyes, to witness the consequences of her choices firsthand. When he arrived, the village air was thick with the smell of earth and cooking fires. Children ran past carrying baskets, women called to one another across the market, and the cooperative's activity hummed like a well-oiled machine. Chief Joseph followed a path until he found Regina standing among the women, her hands dusted with flour, her wrapper simple but neat, her eyes focused on organizing deliveries. For a moment, she did not notice him. Then, slowly her expression changed. She straightened, her hands stilling, as if sensing the presence of the patriarch she had both feared and respected. Regina, he said, his voice calm but heavy. Is that you? She turned fully, bowing slightly in respect. Yes, father. Welcome to Abakba. Chief Joseph took a step closer, surveying the cooperative. Baskets of woven goods, bags of cassava flour, and other products were stacked neatly. Women bustled about, greeting Regina warmly. He felt a strange mixture of pride, disbelief, and unease. What is all this? He asked. Regina smiled faintly. It is our work, father. I used the money you gave me, not to find a husband, but to help women earn their own livelihoods. We organize, sell, and share the profits fairly. It is sustainable. Chief Joseph walked slowly among the women, observing their faces, the careful coordination, and the sense of community. No wealth, no luxury, no husband had built this. Regina had. He turned to her, voice softer now. You didn't follow my instructions. You did something I never imagined. Regina looked him in the eye. Father, I respect you. But I also respect myself and these women. I chose a path that builds more than just a family. I built independence, opportunity, and hope. Chief Joseph exhaled slowly, sitting on a wooden stool. The magnitude of her actions sank in. His quiet daughter, the one he had dismissed, had achieved something far greater than wealth, status, or a husband could ever provide. Victoria and Susan arrived shortly afterward, having traveled with him. Both were stunned at the sight of the cooperative, realizing Regina's courage, vision, and determination far surpassed their own efforts in Lagos. Chief Joseph finally spoke, voice measured and thoughtful. "Regina, I have underestimated you. You've shown me something I could never have taught." Regina smiled, the first hint of relief in her eyes. "Thank you, Father. But this is just the beginning." As he looked at his daughters, 3 very different women, Chief Joseph understood that his greatest lesson was not wealth, influence, or matchmaking. It was learning to let them choose their own paths, and realizing that true impact sometimes comes from the quietest voices. The day unfolded with celebrations. Victoria and Susan joined in, helping pack goods for delivery, laughing with the women, and learning firsthand how the cooperative functioned. By the afternoon, the sisters were exhausted but exhilarated, finally recognizing the power of teamwork, purpose, and humility. That evening, around the communal fire, Chief Joseph spoke again, his voice softer than Regina had ever heard it. "You've all shown me different lessons. Victoria, ambition is not just about appearances. Susan, kindness and patience have power beyond what we imagine. And Regina, courage can move mountains even if it begins in a small village." Victoria nodded. "I see that now, Father. I've been chasing the wrong things." Susan smiled. "And I've learned that fulfillment isn't just about following instructions, it's about creating your own path." Regina looked at her father and sisters, feeling a sense of completeness she hadn't expected. Her journey had started quietly, leaving the mansion with nothing but a check in her resolve, yet it had grown into something far larger than she imagined. Chief Joseph stood and gestured toward the cooperative. "Regina, your work here is your legacy. I am proud of you, not because you followed my orders, but because you followed your heart and your mind." Regina felt a rush of emotion, but she remained composed. "Thank you, Father. The cooperative is just the beginning. We can expand further, teach more women, and change lives. That is the goal." Victoria and Susan nodded, now fully committed to supporting their sister. The 3 triplets stood together by the fire, united not by obligation or wealth, but by respect, love, and understanding. As the moon rose over Abakba, the village hummed with life. Regina's vision had created more than just financial independence. It had sparked hope, empowerment, and a model of what women could achieve when given trust, guidance, and the freedom to choose. Chief Joseph watched his daughters in awe, realizing that the quietest among them had become the boldest, and in doing so, had transformed not only a village but also his understanding of family, success, and legacy. Regina smiled softly, knowing this was just the beginning of many lives she would touch, proving that sometimes the most shocking choice is the one that changes everything for the better. Please, kindly hit the subscribe button, like this video and share. This means a lot to us. Thank you for watching.